I know that you are aware that this weekend marks 20 years since Islamic radical terrorists flew airplanes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And they would have flown a fourth plane into the Capitol or the White House, except that the passengers on that plane wrestled the controls from the hijackers, and the plane went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 3,000 innocent people were murdered in the space of just a few minutes in a cowardly attack that shook the nation more powerfully than anything since Pearl Harbor. One of the reasons the events of that day are seared into the deepest recesses of our souls is that we saw it play out on live television. Some of the images, especially of desperate people jumping from the towers to escape the fireball of the airliners exploding, or the soot-covered people in business attire stumbling away from the collapsing buildings. Quite frankly, they're images that we can't unsee. We all remember exactly where we were that day, and we remember what we were doing when we saw those planes hit. Like the JFK assassination, for those of us old enough to remember it, or the Challenger explosion. There are moments in our lives where an event so stunned us that time seemed just to stand still, and we had to catch our breath from the sheer shock of what our eyes had told us. In the hours, days, and weeks following 9/11, America was unified and united like nothing I had ever witnessed. Flags flew everywhere, on office buildings, residences, even cars, and no one took a knee. No one. Members of Congress from both political parties stood together on the steps of the Capitol and sang a hymn. Churches were filled with people praying. Young men and women put aside their studies or their lives and enlisted in the military. America was at war, and we were united. Here's what didn't happen. People didn't divide along lines of race, gender, political party, or sexual identity. No sane person blamed America or systemic racism or white rage for what happened. So if we really were a racist, imperialistic, evil country, surely we would have been told that by members of Congress back then. But we weren't told that. You know why? Because we weren't an evil country. And I want to tell you something. We aren't an evil country now. We just aren't. Are we imperfect? Of course we are. But we are still the best place on God's green earth. In the last few years, we have allowed America-hating academics and outright Marxists tell us that we're all racist. We've had frightened CEOs of big multinational corporations get down on their knees apologizing to total strangers for some symbolic repentance of sins they can't even recall or name. And we've watched otherwise responsible corporate boards pretend to be woke and demand that their employees get instruction in some nutty nonsense called critical race theory that only serves to divide people when there is so much to unite us as a people blessed by God to live in a nation where color isn't what we're about. Character is. And that's the beautiful message that we once had from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it's never been more needed than it is now. 9/11 was a slap in our face, and it was a rude awakening to the real evil in our world. An ideology that hates America, hates freedom, hates equality for women or people of color. That's the ideology that attacked us. And it remains a threat to our freedom and our way of life. Ultimately, the battle we faced then and the one we still face now, folks, it's a spiritual battle. And will the Judeo-Christian framework that we were built upon remain our foundation? Or will we surrender to a fanatical worldview that believes women are property who don't deserve education or identity, and that killing innocent people for a political cause is perfectly okay? I say instead of apologizing for America, we ought to unapologetically affirm our love for America. And no better day to do that than a day which reminds us of who we really are. We're Americans, and we're proud of it. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.